I'm 97 years old, and I just realized something that's breaking my heart. I have maybe 6 more years left if I'm extraordinarily lucky. Probably less. And there's a young man, my grandson Michael, who's 23 years old right now, and I know exactly what he needs to learn to have a good life. I can see all his mistakes before he makes them. I understand what matters and what doesn't. I've lived through enough to teach him everything that took me 7 decades to figure out. But here's the devastating truth. I don't have enough time left. If I had started when he was 17, we could have done this. If I had 6 more years of decent health and a clear mind, I could pass it all on. But I'm 97. My body is failing. My energy runs out after an hour of conversation, and the window is closing so fast I can hear it slamming shut. I waited too long, and that's going to haunt me until my last breath. When Michael was little, maybe 5 or 6 years old, he used to ask me questions constantly. Grandpa, why is the sky blue? Grandpa, how do cars work? Grandpa, why do people die? And I give him simple answers because I thought he was too young to understand the real lessons. I thought I had time. Years and years stretching out ahead where I could sit him down and teach him properly. I told myself I'd wait until he was older, more mature, ready to really listen. That was my first mistake, because by the time he was a teenager, he stopped asking questions. He got busy with school and friends and sports and girls. And I got older and more tired, and the conversations we did have became shorter and more superficial. How's school? Fine. How's basketball? Good. And that was it. Years passed like that. Surface level exchanges. Nothing deep. Nothing real. And I kept thinking, later. When he's in his 20s, we'll have those talks. When he's settled and more reflective, that's when I'll share everything I know. Well, now he's 23, and I'm 97, and suddenly I'm looking at the math, and the math is brutal. If I live to 103, which would be a genuine miracle, that's 6 more years. But realistically, the doctors give me 2 years, maybe 3. My heart is worn out. My lungs don't work like they should. I get exhausted just walking to the kitchen. How am I supposed to teach someone everything I've learned in 70-plus years of adult life when I can barely stay awake past 8 in the evening? I started making a list 3 months ago. Everything I wish I could teach Michael before I die. It started with practical things. How to fix things around the house. How to manage money properly. How to treat a woman with respect. But then it got deeper. How to handle failure without giving up. How to recognize what actually matters in life. How to forgive people who hurt you. How to make hard decisions when there's no good option. How to live with integrity even when it costs you. How to find meaning when everything feels meaningless. The list kept growing, page after page, and the more I wrote, the more desperate I felt, because I realized I'd need years to teach all of this properly, not just telling him, but showing him, explaining the context, sharing the stories that illustrate why these lessons matter. And I don't have years. I have months, if I'm lucky. Last week, Michael came to visit me. He stays for about 45 minutes, usually. We watch some television together. He tells me a little about his job, his girlfriend, his apartment, surface stuff. And I wanted so badly to grab him by the shoulders and say, "Sit down. We need to talk seriously. We need to have the conversations we should have had 10 years ago." But I looked at his face, and he was already checking his phone, already thinking about leaving. And I realized, even if I had the energy to start, even if I could find the words, he's not ready to hear it. Not really. He still thinks he has forever. He still thinks he's invincible. He doesn't understand yet that time runs out. For him, I'm just his old grandpa who tells the same stories and falls asleep in his chair. He loves me, but he doesn't see me as someone who has urgent, critical information he desperately needs. That's what kills me. I can see his future so clearly. I can see the mistakes he's about to make, the wrong career path he's considering because it pays well, but will make him miserable. The relationship he's in that won't last because he doesn't know how to communicate yet. The financial decisions he'll regret. The friendships he'll let slip away. The anger he'll hold on to that will poison him. I can see all of it because I made every single one of those mistakes, and I know how to avoid them. I know what he should do instead, but he won't listen. Not because he doesn't care about me, but because he can't hear it yet. The lessons don't land until you've lived enough to understand why they matter. I had a mentor when I was 32 years old, man named Howard. He was 76 at the time, and he tried to teach me things, tried to warn me about the traps I was walking into. And I nodded politely and then did whatever I wanted anyway. I thought I knew better. I thought his advice was outdated, irrelevant to my situation. It took me 20 more years to realize he was right about everything. By then, he was dead. I never got to thank him, never got to tell him I finally understood. And now, I'm Howard. I'm the old man with the wisdom nobody wants to hear until it's too late. I think about my own grandfather sometimes. He died when I was 27. I barely knew him, really. We lived in different states, and I only saw him at holidays. He was quiet, didn't talk much about himself. And now I wonder, what did he know? What could he have taught me if I'd asked? What wisdom died with him that could have changed my life? I'll never know. And that's exactly what's going to happen with Michael. Everything I've learned, all these hard-won lessons from 97 years of living, they're going to die with me because I don't have time to pass them on properly, and he's not ready to receive them anyway. The specific things I want to teach him keep me up at night. I want to tell him that career success means nothing if you sacrifice your health to get it. I spent 40 years building a business, working 70-hour weeks, and you know what? None of it mattered. The business is gone. The achievements are forgotten. What remains is the damage I did to my body and the time I didn't spend with people I loved. I want to tell him that marriage is the most important decision he'll ever make, and he needs to choose based on character, not chemistry. Chemistry fades. Character doesn't. I want to teach him how to apologize properly, how to admit when he's wrong, how to put his ego aside. These are skills that took me decades to learn, and they'll save him years of unnecessary conflict and pain. I want to explain that money is important, but only up to a certain point. After you can pay your bills and have some security, more money won't make you happier. I've watched wealthy people be miserable and modest people be joyful. It's not about the amount. It's about not being enslaved by wanting more. I want to show him how to be alone without being lonely, how to enjoy his own company, how to build a life that doesn't depend on constant distraction and validation. I want to teach him about death, about how to accept it without fear, how to live fully because time is limited, not in spite of it. These lessons matter. They're the difference between a good life and a wasted one. And I have no way to transfer them in the time I have left. Sometimes I imagine what it would be like if I were 77 instead of 97, 20 more years, even 10 more years. That would be enough. Michael would be 33, more mature, more open. We could have regular conversations, weekly dinners where I'd share one lesson at a time, let it sink in, answer his questions, tell the stories that illustrate the point. We could build something real, a genuine transfer of knowledge and wisdom. But I'm not 77, I'm 97, and there's no time machine. There's no way to go back and start this when I should have. The worst part is knowing it's my fault. I had opportunities. When Michael was 15, going through that difficult phase, I could have stepped in more, could have had real talks with him instead of just nagging about grades and behavior. When he was 18, graduating high school, uncertain about his future, I could have sat him down and had serious conversations about life and purpose and meaning. But I was 82 then, and I was tired, and I thought his parents would handle it. I thought there would be more time later. I was wrong. And now I'm paying the price. But worse, Michael is going to pay the price. He's going to make mistakes I could have helped him avoid. He's going to learn lessons the hard way that he could have learned from me. He's going to waste years, maybe decades, figuring out things I already know. And it didn't have to be this way. I recorded some videos last month, sat in front of my daughter's phone and tried to share my most important lessons. But watching them back, they felt hollow. Without the context, without the relationship, they're just an old man rambling. They don't have the power they would have if we'd built this connection over years. If he'd been asking me questions and I'd been answering them in real time, addressing his actual situations. Now it's just generic advice that probably won't mean much to him until he's older anyway, and by then he won't need my videos. He'll have learned it himself. My biggest regret isn't what I did in my life. It's what I failed to pass on. I'm taking all this knowledge to the grave, 97 years of experience, and most of it dies with me. That feels like such a waste, such a tragedy. Not for me, I've lived my life, but for him, for Michael, and for all the young people who don't realize what they're losing every time someone from my generation dies without passing on what they learned. We're losing libraries, burning books, letting wisdom evaporate because we don't prioritize this kind of knowledge transfer anymore. Families don't sit together and talk like they used to. Young people don't ask elders for advice, and elders like me, we wait too long, thinking there will be time later. And then suddenly, there isn't. If you're young and you still have your grandparents or great-grandparents or even parents who've lived long enough to have real wisdom, please don't wait. Ask them questions now. Sit with them. Let them tell you their stories, their lessons, their regrets. Not because you'll understand everything immediately, but because you're creating a foundation. You're planting seeds that will grow later when you need them. Record their voices. Write down what they say. Even if it seems boring or irrelevant now, trust me, in 20 years, you'll wish you had it. You'll want to hear their voice again. You'll want to remember what they told you. And if you're older, if you have knowledge to share, don't wait for the perfect moment. Start now. Even if they don't seem ready. Even if they're not asking. Share what you know. Tell your stories. Be patient when they don't listen. Keep trying, because you don't know how much time you have left. None of us do. But especially when you're in your 90s, you can feel it. The time is short, and once you're gone, that opportunity is gone forever. I'm 97 years old. I have maybe 2 years left, probably less. And I have a grandson who needs so much of what I could teach him. But the window has closed. I waited too long, and that's something I'll carry with me to the end. Don't make my mistake. Don't wait. Start the conversations now. Pass on what you know while you still can. Because time doesn't wait for anyone, and once it's gone, you can't get it back.